He's got 36. I'd like to call the 2026 budget deliberation process to order as scheduled for the town of Redwood. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Tingley. And please lead us through the package.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Welcome to the 2026 budget deliberations. You can hold your applause to the end. So before I kick off with the financial side of the house, I'm going to immediately hand things over to Mr. Van Buell to deliver the message from the CAO.
Welcome and good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's that time of year again when we must align our financial resources with our strategic goals, meet the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and pave the way for our financial sustainability for both 2006 through 2029 and the many years beyond. It is true that the financial resources we allocate today will shape tomorrow and beyond. But it is also true that in many cases, the financial resources we do not allocate today will also shape tomorrow and beyond. The budget is a political statement regarding the priorities of council. It is a statement about priorities for the community and provides administration the financial resources to advance the vision of council. The reality is that every year council sits together to map out how to spend the financial resources to bring the vision that council has for the community closer to reality. The vision is contained within the strategic plan, and it is this plan which guides us in delivering services and programs to our residents and bringing this vision to life in our everyday lives. It is our hope that within the proposed budget, council will see the linkage between the strategic plan and the priorities outlined within the budget. The budget sets out the priorities for the next 12 months and gives guidance to the degree that we will move forward with the vision and gain the public confidence in that vision. As we move through the budget discussions over the next several weeks, it is important to reiterate that the budget that is being presented to council for consideration is a budget that administration has put together while interpreting council's vision for our community. As we are all aware, the recent elections have brought forward new council members. With this comes new ideas and the potential for new perspectives on the vision going forward. Administration is committed to working through this potential change, knowing that the budget is one step in this evolving discussion. There will be more discussions as we work on updating the council's strategic plan and bring forward the many policy discussions that will shape our future going forward. But our first task is to finalize the 2026 budget over the next several weeks. This role is exclusive to council, as it is council that must be comfortable with the financial allocation of resources. As I've already stated, the budget is the financial strategy to achieve the strategic plan. This budget was put together by administration with these overarching priorities. If you can go to the next slide, please. It's about investment in growth infrastructure, the renewed investment for infrastructure sustainability, promote service excellence, support for economic development, reduce our tax support to public utilities, and deal with the program specific pressures. These priorities are developed based on the previous discussions with the previous council, the budget priorities carried over from previous budgets, and issues that have risen over the course of the 2025 budget year. These priorities are further enhanced by bringing forward administration's obligations to inform council of areas that may put the municipality in a liability position. Areas such as health and safety and the potential for investment in areas that could otherwise put the town at a precarious legal position. Next slide, please. The first is the growth infrastructure. The capital budget includes funding required for the completion of the wastewater collection and treatment project. This project is contingent on successful grant applications to both the federal and provincial government. Also included are the intersection upgrades at Oker Park Road and Highway 38. However, it must be noted that there is a funding gap as the expected cost for completion have escalated beyond the funding available in the offsite levies account. Next slide, please. Investing in renewing existing infrastructure continues to be a focal point. Sidewalks, including the downtown core, street overlays, gas line replacement, the ongoing renewal of underground water and wastewater infrastructure have all been funded in the budget. In addition, we continue to prioritize the spot repairs required to ensure that the public maintains confidence in our ability to provide core water, sewer, and gas utilities. Next slide. Council continues to advocate for service excellence in program and service delivery. This budget has identified a number of investments to increase efficiency and effectiveness in program and service delivery, from adding tools and attachments for equipment upgrades to major equipment like the snowblower for winter maintenance, and upgrading our technology to support safety and capital asset maintenance. We've also invested in technology and equipment upgrades to assist in service level enhancements, things like attachments for existing skid steer and toolcat, upgraded snowblower for increased efficiency of winter snow removal, and enhancements to internal technology to support safety and efficiency in programs and services. Next slide, please. As we heard earlier, now that our MDP and land use bylaw have been addressed, it is time to focus on what is required to boost economic development in Redwater. Administration has included the funding required to obtain a provincial NRED grant, or NRED grant, if you hear that name, that's what it is. This grant is a 50-50 matching grant provided by the provincial government to support all things economic development related. If successful, our project will focus on retail and industrial gap analysis, followed by an economic development plan and the development of a microsite. Further, it will provide much needed training dollars to assist in supporting the skill development of our staff in the area of economic development. The budget will also see the continuation and continued marketing of the Reimagine Redwater program for local businesses to improve and upgrade storefront aesthetics. Next slide, please. The budget attempts to reduce the reliance of utilities on property taxes. This task has become more challenging as consumption rates for gas and water see a trend downward. Current utility rates include not only the cost for purchasing water and gas, but also the overhead required to maintain the systems that deliver these utilities to our consumers. With the reduction in consumption, this overhead is spread out over smaller numbers of units, which negatively affects costs for utility consumers. Administration has attempted to segregate the costs of the utilities from other programs and services to enable council to make conscious decisions on the level of support the utilities will require from the general tax base. The fundamental reason for this segregation being that not all utility users pay property taxes, or at the very least pay the full property taxes, as the provincial government does not pay 100% in grants in lieu of taxes. Administration's direction in this area is to continue the previous council's trend of slowly moving utility to a self-funding program in the budget. Next slide. This might be the most difficult one for us to deal with in the budget, as there continue to be a number of areas with abnormal funding pressures. In 2025, the province made a conscious decision to not pass on the increased cost of policing for provincial contract to the contract municipalities. This decision included the town of Redwater. As a result, the province has said that this was a one-time decision and to expect a significant increase in 2026. Unfortunately, the province has not yet determined what this increase will be. And the further result is that administration has included a 30% expected increase in the cost of policing. Additional pressures in this budget include a pilot project previously communicated to council in September 2025 to transfer resources to our health and safety program. Health and safety continues to be a focal point for both our administration as well as the province of Alberta, as demonstrated by the OH&S audit of municipalities during the 2025 and 2026 years. Although the consumer price index for inflation is showing significant sign of slowing down, it was calculated at 1.7% year over year as of June 2025. We continue to see extreme price increases in most areas of expenses related to capital spending. Capital construction costs are expected to continue to increase well above the 1.7% CPI and is putting extreme pressure on the capital budget. This inflation is somewhat related to the amount of grant funding being pumped into capital projects by both the provincial and federal governments. As we heard at Alberta municipalities, the province is spending big dollars investing in capital through schools alone, and that doesn't include the rest of the infrastructure that the province has. I think the number there was $6.5 billion in schools over the next 5 years. So this trend of capital increases doesn't see any sign of slowing down anytime soon. Other factors that have influenced these increases include tariffs and lingering supply chain disruptions, as we've seen with our emergency generator at the water plant that we basically ordered way back in, I believe, March or April, and is still not in place. All the infrastructure is ready for it to be hooked up, but we're still waiting for the actual piece of equipment to arrive. Included in the capital spending increase is equipment. An example is a snow blower that is proposed in 2026. In 2025, the same piece of equipment was estimated to be $185,000, and in 2026 is estimated to be $215,000, an increase of just about 17% over 1 year. Administration continues to monitor these trends and acknowledges that increases outside of estimated costs may lead to purchase cancellations and/or project postponements. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a very high-level overview of the budget as it will be presented to you. Before moving forward with the detailed presentations and discussions, I am open to any questions you may have that do not ask for details that will be presented later on. But before we go on, I'd also like to extend my appreciation to our GM of Operations and our GM of Corporate Services for all of their work on this budget. It is no small task to gather the information and bring it together in a manner that makes sense. I would also like to extend thanks to all of our supervisory staff who have worked with our GMs for openly discussing the options and supporting their GMs with timely information and advice and recommendations on finding a path forward for our challenges. Thank you again to every one of you. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on the information presented so far.
Go ahead, Councillor Olson.
I have one question to either Ms. Tinley or Mr. Van Buell. What are we looking at for a number this year for 1%?
So I was sitting here thinking I have all of this information right in front of me, and further on in the slide, I have a number that is 1% in the slide, but did I commit it to memory? No. So give me 1 second. As soon as we got to the presentation where I show you year over year, I can tell you exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's in like 3 slides. But if you take the tax increase, or like the total taxes, like the total municipal taxation, it'll be the 35,942 or something along those lines.
So it is up a little bit from last year.
We were 34 or something.
Yeah, I think we were 34 and change. We were calling it 34 as a nice round number. I think this year it'll be somewhere around 35 or 36,000 is a 1% tax increase. So, and for anybody listening, what that means is when we raise taxes 1%, we raise a grand total of right around $36,000
Revenue.
in revenue.
Anything else? Next slide, please.
All right, so we'll go over the agenda. So this agenda is going to encompass the entire budget deliberations, not just this evening. So this evening, our intention is to get through the division, so the budget overview with the overhead analysis, as well as the division budget, so council as well as corporate services. We do have a hard stop there as we want to allow Mr. Davison the opportunity to present his department with operations. Then we'll go into the office of the CAO, the capital and long-term plan, so the 2026 proposed capital budget, the 5-year capital plan, and the 3-year operating, as well as the reserves and grants. And then second year this year, including the fees and charges review, as we are incorporating it with the budget changes. So as we begin these presentations, I've tried to add some additional context where it seemed appropriate, just to ensure that everyone at the table has all the information to make an informed decision. There will be gaps in that. I do welcome any sort of feedback, questions that you may have. If I don't have the answer readily available, I will get it to you for a future meeting. As this is my 3rd budget, I've been building on that knowledge year over year, but it's not 14 years in, but we'll get there. So an overview in the budget process. So this actually begins early in the new year with preparation of the budget. And this is something that's going to be really key as we go into the new year. especially with the council workshop at the end of January. This is where we can really have a conversation as to like what are the next 4 years going to look like and beyond that, and get an idea of long-term planning from your perspective so we can begin developing that budget. From there, we're going to internally start developing the budget. We're going to roll for the spreadsheets, move in all the supervisors, start compiling the year-over-year information. We find ourselves here in stage 3 with the review and approval process. And then third week of December, just before the Christmas break, we're going to be with, hopefully we've passed the budget. We're communicating that budget to our community. The budget process. Just a reminder of our missions and values here. So in the municipal service equation, so we're in the quality of life business, providing value for taxes, rates, fees, and charges. So we provide hundreds of critical and quality life of services each day, and these are supported by the capital assets. Our intention is to build a resilient town. We do this by shaping a sustainable future through making budget decisions as we are over the next few weeks to strengthen our fiscal health and keep our taxes steady. We're looking to meet economic challenges by making responsible choices to ensure long-term stability despite high or low inflation and reduced assessment revenue. We're looking to maintain or balance service and costs with modest tax adjustments to maintain service levels for residents and businesses. And just overall smart budget management by updating policies. A big one was our reserve policy that we updated earlier this year. Sorry.
I can't open it up.
Sorry. Oh,
I can't open it.
the presentation?
Yeah.
Do you... Sorry, I'm not super techy. Are you... Oh, it's a, sorry, it's a PDF, so you should be able to scroll down.
Should be able to. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
We got it.
Yeah, it's a really large file, so I think that it's maybe tricky to attach it that way.
Sorry.
Yeah, no
That's
worries.
good, thanks.
Okay, so some overarching budget opportunities and challenges. So we have some external pressures, again, the inflationary or deflationary pressures, cost sharing pressures, so the lack of assessment growth, and also changes in assessment growth. We did see a shift for 2025 in res versus non-res composition, so that's something that we're going to talk about as we get closer to the tax rate bylaw. I'm going to start those conversations probably in February, but I'm just laying the groundwork now. And again, so that provincial downloading of policing costs, so that's huge this year. At a later slide, I analyze the 5 years prior of policing costs, so you can see year over year those incremental increases to support our 30% increase within this budget. We also have some internal pressures and opportunities, so just the constant emergence of capital projects. We always want to be ahead of the game on that. We don't want to be the example of a municipality with a significant main break. I won't name any names. Again, we're trying to balance that with our department capacity to actually get those projects done, and again, addressing the aging infrastructure. So some funding assumptions included in this budget. So as of right now, we haven't received confirmation for our LGFF operating funds, so we have assumed that the funds that we will receive is the same as prior years. So if you'll recall, in 2023, we actually saw an unbudgeted doubling of the LGFF, formerly MSI, which was really great to see. So the split looks like, so the total is $56,258, so shy of 1%. So we have, the allocation is 5% of that to disaster services, 45% to fire, and then that incremental increase, the 50% increase, has been allocated to administration. There has been no change in that allocation for 2026. So at the time of this presentation, FCSS grants remain at a current level, but I have some great news. We are seeing an increase from 26 through to the end of 28, if I'm not mistaken. So the increase, right now it's budgeted at $64,000, but per the most recent funding agreement, we're gonna see an increase to $67,452. So that's 0.1% of a decrease in the taxation amount that you're gonna see on the slides. So that's really good news, because every little bit counts. As for the federal summer jobs, we budget those exactly as they are received. There's not a lot of changes year over year with that unless we make changes to staffing. Moving on to Fortis franchise fee and utilities. So we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about this later on the slides because we are making some changes here, and I just wanna make sure that we communicate the rationale for these changes to everyone here as well as everyone listening in our community. So The Fortis franchise fee was allocated to offset the Pembina Place debenture and to balance the increasing police expenses from the province and sewer liner project reserves. So in the budget, we have proposed a increase of 2% to 12%. So, sorry?
Of 2%, from 10% to 12%.
Yeah, sorry, from 10% to 12. Yeah, so we proposed an increase of 2% to 12%.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I looked at that, I'm like, ooh, probably could have presented that differently, but great catch. So we've left the allocations the same, and I wanted to provide some additional context for that as well. So the allocations right now, we have $89,675 to offset the policing costs, which doesn't cover it in full, as you'll see during the operations side of the presentation. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in 2025, the cost of policing was around $132,000. But in a further slide, I can give you the exact number. And the balance to $112,280 to Pembina Place, with a transfer of $37,685 to reserves to support the sewer line project reserves. So with the 2% increase from 10% to 12%, we've allocated that full increase to offset the policing expenses. So with this in effect, because we won't opt in until after we've passed the budget, it won't be for the full calendar year for 2026. So we've had to prorate the increase. So the Fortis slide that you'll see later on will show the full dollar amount, but again, we've had to prorate it as we won't start receiving the increase until April of next year, if council approves the increase. So a couple more rate increases to touch on before we get in detail later on. Water variable rate has been increased from $1.65 to $2 per cubic meter in this budget proposed, as well as the gas variable rate has been proposed to increase from $2.15 per gigajoule to $2.35.
Go ahead, Councillor Brown.
So these are consumer rates, yes?
Yes.
So that's 20%, 19% for the first one and 8.5%, 9% for the second one. Correct?
So I can't quite do that mental math, but in later
I
slides.
figured it out, that's
Yeah.
all it is. So, yeah, okay, no, those are big. Okay.
Yeah, and this is an overview right now. I did provide some additional slides in the presentation this year just to provide some additional context as to why we're going to increase those and the consequence of not increasing them.
Thanks.
So some 2026 asset management strategies. So not a significant change here. We have the $1,550 reserve for future replacement of fire equipment. So that is essentially a placeholder. What we transfer are the actuals. So that is a net of the, I don't want to use the word sales, but any fire-related charges that we see plus the vehicle expenses to maintain the town engine. We have a $100,000 asset management strategy fund for streets, so the transfer this year. So this is an ongoing long-term goal as provincial grants are at risk of reduction, so specifically for sidewalks. We have the combination of all of the utility capital investment charges from the utilities of $334,151 collected from our monthly bills, including the dividend to the municipality for the garbage rate restructure, and the utility infrastructure reinvestment rider, which is now coming up on its third year. $100,000 from ongoing recreation agreement, so that's again $50,000 from the county, $50,000 from the town. And then the $35,000 reserve transfer for technology reserve initiatives, very, very important as we are going to see a significant increase or significant cost with our upgrade of Diamond as its end of life, September 2029. So 1% is $38,390.49. So this is 2026 is proposed and 2025 is actual. So we're seeing the budget that you're seeing this evening is a $264,842 increase over the 2025 budget, or 7.41%.
That does not include the utility increase.
This does, yes.
Yeah, so I have a question about those numbers, but I'll wait till you get to the actual lines, because there's about a $5,000 difference between what you've got here in municipal taxation and what you've got in municipal taxation expense versus revenue? Wait till we get there.
That relates to the, that's the tax rebate.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, they don't always net out. So
They-
last
they
year it
don't
would have
have
been, I think 19,000 if I'm not mistaken. But really good question. So I encourage all of these because it's imperative to me that you understand everything that I'm presenting. If as I'm presenting this, it's just, you guys kind of just like gloss over and there's something you don't feel comfortable, please ask me because I want to make sure I'm giving you all of the information you need to make an informed decision for our community.
Allegra,
Yeah.
just back to your comment there. If you have a $264,842 increase and it's a 7.41% increase, that works out to $35,741 per percent.
Oh, you know what? There we go. 3574. I was using the wrong one. It's mental math's not my strong suit.
Not a problem.
Okay.
So 1%, Councillor Olson, is 35,741.
36 for argument's sake.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Mr. Van.
36 will be friends.
All right. Is it like intentionally warm in here? We're at. Honestly, I am so warm right now. I cannot take off my sweater because
He's freezing, so.
Turn it down, Miranda.
Okay, I'll just.
I'll be with you.
Well, okay. Am I still on the camera? No, it's okay. I'll just I'll enter. Okay, so we'll go over some historical budget increases. Oh no. Okay, so some historical budget increases. So I know the font's really small, I apologize. So the blue represents the year-over-year increase for the town, so the budget increases. You'll see the yellow line, or orange, sorry, is for Canadian inflation, and then the gray is for Alberta. The colors were chosen because Oilers, obviously. So what we're looking for here is you'll see the peaks and valleys and the differential between them. So it looks like in years where we dip below inflation, and then the following year we're trying to catch up in a year that inflation decreases. So what we've done really well these last few years is start to normalize. You'll see that inflation in Alberta flatten out at the same differential that our budget is flattening out as well, the increases year over year. Again, 2026, because we don't know the inflation of 2026, it kind of falls off there.
Sorry if I could, Allegra. The important part of this is CPI inflation, right? This is consumer price index
Not our
inflation.
inflation.
That we're tying to, and as I mentioned earlier, our stream pressure right now, we don't buy the same basket of goods, right? And our pressure on pumps and motors and, you know, the equipment that we replace, it's nowhere near 1.7%, and that's one of our big pressure points right now.
So the 2026 estimated municipal tax dollar. So it's, when we talk about municipal taxation, so okay, we're looking to generate with this budget right now $3.8 million in municipal taxation. But what does that mean to the average household? So we've taken the average assessment in 2025 was $223,381, and we've calculated what the monthly increase would look like based on last year's mill rates and the increase of 7.41% for this year, just to explain the math behind it. So we're looking at an increase of $200 per month compared to $177 per month in 2025. We've listed the services that you get for that $200 a month. So the arena and the curling facilities, bylaw services, community beautification, the cultural center, the community and family programs, economic development and promotion, emergency and disaster recovery, family community support services, fire response and prevention, the museum and the library facilities, pool, parks, recreation facilities, really crucial road and sidewalk maintenance, street lights, street sweeping, snow removal. So comparison to other monthly services, so this is new this year because we have some new Stats Canada data. So on average, a household spends monthly $1,000 on transportation, $230 on clothing, $155 on personal care, $436 on recreation. Just as a point of reference, And I'm sure we can all think about things that we are spending on a monthly basis, thinking about the subscriptions that you have for however many streaming services you have, what you're paying for the cost of internet. Everything is increasing. So for $200 a month, I'd say that's really just like all encompassing. And for reference too, so that value of $223.381, last year, the average assessment in 2024 was $212,455. So just about a 6% increase in the average assessment. And it did some really interesting things because we saw an increase in residential assessment and a decrease in non-residential assessment. And that had some really interesting implications on the overall mill rates. We actually saw a decrease in the residential mill rates. Again, outside of the scope of the conversations this evening, but I just really want to lay the foundation for our upcoming conversations in May when we start talking tax rate bylaw, because it's never too soon to start talking about that, because it all flows together. Okay, so going on to the tax rebate. So what's really interesting about these 3 years, and it's the eligible residential assessment. So you'll see 2024, we had rates that were comparable to new assessment in 2026, like projected. 2025 saw an increase in residential assessment, which was really great to see. So this, in terms of the budget this evening, a decrease in eligible residential assessment has a positive impact on our taxation, as we do have to budget an expense for these properties that are up for this municipal rebate. But conversely, it indicates that the growth has fallen off for this year. So it's good news for budget, bad news for long-term assessment growth. So with the total municipal rebate eligible, I've taken the middle of those two numbers, a round number of course, and included that in the budget. So cost of living comparables. So this is a spreadsheet, this is a slide that I'm not entirely sure will be continued in future slides. I would be interested to hear some input following the budget presentations. So in July of this year, if I'm not mistaken, we passed policy 326 in regards to the compensation that we would be bringing to budget. And it would be based on the inflation rates as of June of that year for consistency. So that's what the 1.7% represents for the Redwater staff. I apologize for the mistake. The Redwater Council, as it was reviewed, it will be at 0% this year. The difference here is going to be a reduction of $2,600 or 0.07%. But then as of the time of this presentation, Bon Accord was proposing a 2% as part of their initial budget deliberations. Legal was looking at 2.5, Morinville 3.5. We didn't hear responses from Sturgeon and Gibbons. It seems like with the timing of the election and Alberta Munis, many municipalities are waiting until late November, early December to start with their budget deliberations, so this information wasn't available when I was contacting our cohort. Right, so before we get into everything else, is there any questions at this time?
Just feel free, counsel, you won't have to go through the chair if you've got a question.
All right, so we'll kick off with wages and contributions. So for 2026, the projected wages will represent 25.5% of total operating expenses. So this is on par with wages as a percentage of total operating expenses in 2025. However, we are seeing some composition changes this year. So for reference, the 2025 budgeted wages were totaling just over 2.3 million, with an increase of $26,582. So we have some structural changes that we're proposing as we go into 2026. So this is the pilot project. So our pilot project is to contract out the finance manager position. So with the addition of a 0.6 full-time equivalent corporate services assistant and the creation of an occupational health and safety coordinator. So how that would look is we would have a health and safety coordinator that would be devoted approximately 60% to health and safety and 40% to administrative functions. And then to backfill that position, we'd have the 0.6 full-time equivalent for that role to ensure that we still have adequate coverage in our corporate services department. And the finance manager position, by contracting that out, it allows us to have the room in the budget, essentially, to make sure.
It gives us the financial flexibility
Yeah.
to move some resources around without increasing dollars, but moving people around into different areas.
If I'm not mistaken, when we first talked about this, there was gonna be a very small net positive.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there'll be a very small net positive that you should see on the bottom line for this year. What we've done in this, though, is because it's a pilot project, we know that once these dollars are gone, getting them back is difficult, if not impossible. So we budgeted the same amount of money, just reallocated into different areas.
Yeah. But the pilot project itself will give us a net benefit.
That's what it should do if this works out, so, but probably won't see that net until 2027.
Are you saying you're looking at 1.6 FTE?
Addition?
Yes.
No, so we had a finance manager position earlier this year. So when he left in July, we never filled that role. So we were now one less FTE. So instead of filling that role, we contracted it out at a lesser rate than what we would have had for that finance person. And we talked about, we wanted to take time to talk about long-term, because there's been other gaps within our organization, and how can we be more efficient with the resources we have available, like the physical, like the human resources. And so with the elimination of that full-time person, we have contracted out, so it's not a full contract, it's 8 hours per week at a reduced rate of a full-time person, plus no contribution costs. So with the occupational health and safety coordinator, that is still one position that's just moved laterally, and then the addition of 0.6. So essentially it's an elimination of 0.4, but the addition of a contract. So the net financial impact is immaterial. It's being more strategic about where we're allocating our resources to get the most benefit for our organization as a whole. But it's a pilot project because we want to ensure that we still have adequate coverage in corporate services because of so corporate services is a really difficult department to quantify because so much of what we do is intangible. And where with operations, like you can see all of Charity's and her department's hard work with the programming and all the community supports. You can see all the work that Jeremy's team is doing, like all throughout the seasons, and how wonderful our community works. You can see these two guys here, all the work they put in with our underground infrastructure and everything above. So, convoluted answer. So no, it's not an additional. Circling back to your initial question.
So, as far as head count, so if we just talk about bodies and seats, there's no change. But the reduction is in our full-time equivalency. So we've used the reduction in those hours to pay for the contract to try and reallocate resources into some of these pressure points. And our big pressure point, and I think our operations staff can talk about this, is OH&S, and it's been going this way for a lot of years. So it's nothing new. But the changes in the last probably 3 to 4 years have made it so that even a municipality the size of ours, you can't do it off the side of somebody's desk anymore. It can't be assigned to somebody who's also, doing snow removal, et cetera. There's just too many I's to dot and T's to cross. So that's one of our pressure points. And I won't even say unfortunately. Fortunately, this isn't going to be something that falls off of anybody's radar. And our commitment administratively continues to be, we send people home in the same shape or better than we got them in the morning. That is our moral obligation, and we won't even talk about our legal obligation to do that. From my perspective, that is our moral obligation. We get people to come to work in the morning, and it is our job to make sure that they get home in as good a shape or better than we got them at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whenever we got them.
Is this something we need a full-time person for?
I'll be honest with you. I think that's part of the reason why we're calling it a pilot project, Councillor Smith. We think we can do it with 0.6 right now and kind of backfill. But if we go through the year and our person goes, you know what, I can't keep up, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that we won't be back here next year going, you know what, this might be a full-time position. And I have had discussions with a very close neighboring municipality about sharing this position, but for reasons that I can't divulge here, we haven't got there yet, but I think it's something that I think can work if we have the right discussions and we figure this out. I think it's something where you can share this position, because what we do here, they're gonna duplicate in another smaller municipality, and I think you know, there's the opportunity that might be the way it becomes a full-time position, and then you share the cost.
Just by way of history for new council and old alike, this position has bounced ball for probably the last 7 or 8 years. Would that be about right, Councillor Olson? We've had different
I'd
people.
say so, yeah, because we've had full-time, we've had
Part-time, we've had partnerships and everything else, so it's something that has to get solidified and looked after, because like Mr. Van Buell says, we gotta make sure our people get home at the end of the day.
Yeah, the consequence of not doing this is pretty severe.
Okay.
It's not the physical person being here, it's the paperwork that's involved in anything that happens.
And here's what I know council will indulge me for maybe a couple more minutes. One of the things that I think is imperative with this person is they're not gonna do things in the field for our staff. They can't, right? That, they don't know the job as well as the people who are out there. They can be that little voice on the shoulder that says, is this the right way to do this? Right? Or is there a better way to do this? And set that culture so that we ask the right questions in our organization. Because if we ask the right questions and we get the right discussion, I'm a firm believer that we'll get the right answer, and especially in our health and safety. And I'll give kudos where kudos are deserved, and our staff have bought into this. I think they've done a fantastic job in the last year to 18 months of really grabbing on to some of the things that we've done. We've got some new tools around Nectar and our ability to do things electronically so that it's not all paper, so it's easier for them. And again, they're asking the right questions and they're having the right discussions, and it's showing, quite frankly. You know, I mentioned the audit from the provincial OH&S inspectors, and so far, you know, I don't want to toot our horn too bad, knock on wood, but so far so good. You know, they're telling us that we're doing the right things and we're having the right discussions. So I think right now we're on the right track.
So as mentioned in the previous slide, so based on cost of living comparables, the following is included in the budget. So again, I apologize for the council cost of living adjustment of 1.7 that's been removed, or that will be removed. So the employee cost of living adjustment of 1.7% per policy 326, in addition to employee compensation adjustments related to service excellence.
Sorry, I just want to make one point on that. So the reason it's 0 for council this year is because in the spring, we had the public committee that did the wage adjustment. So part of the policy is in any year where that wage adjustment's done, there's no cost of living for that group or that employee or that group of employees. So fully expect next year that we will be presenting whatever number we're using for staff. That would be the number for COLA that we use for council. But again, this year we had the review and we forgot about that. So.
Yeah, and that's in line with previous budgets too. You'll always see the initial proposed budget to have the employee and the council cost of living to be the same percentage. And then again, with the employees, as part of the budget, if there was like a change some sort of change to their compensation, again, they would be omitted from the 2% or the compensation adjustments related to service excellence. So we're just, the policy allows us to keep things consistent year over year.
Can I ask a foolish question? Does an employee get the same raise that council gets, or does council get the same raise that employees get?
So there are two entirely different things. So what we do after this point is, so say this was next year and I was presenting this budget. So I would have the 1.7% or whatever the percentage is next year based on inflation. And so when we came to the deliberations, when we needed to make, you guys needed to make some difficult decisions, I would present those as two independent values, so you can make this decisions independently. This would be the dollar amount if tax percentage decreased if council were remain at 0%. And here's the same differential if staff were to remain at 0% or 1% or whatever the options were. It'll be part of the options that I provide.
Yeah, no, I get that. I was wondering about policy 326. Wasn't it related? Wasn't?
Oh, yeah, yes, it's the same percentage.
Yes, it's the same percentage. So, Councillor
Which is tied to which?
Tied to
Smith, I'd say they're both tied to the same thing. They're both tied to the consumer price index. So it's the one, I think, area where staff wages probably, increase for COLA relates closer to the consumer price index than anything else that we do here. So we haven't tied one to the other, we've tied it to the consumer price index. Now, I will say that one of the things that we have in our organization is we have all of our employees right now are on grids, right? So they have a step grid. So the COLA and the step grid are separate from one another. Right? So the step grid is based on merit, and you can get a step each year, providing your performance is acceptable, but you do max out on that grid at a certain point on the steps. We have I believe it's a 20%, I want to say it's 20% from, it might be 18, so Joel.
110 or whatever.
It's more than 10.
Yeah.
From the bottom of the scale to the top of the scale, and they move in 2% increments. So it takes a while for an employee to get to the top of their grid.
Okay.
That catches it.
Wages and contributions continued. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the contributions. So for 2026, projected contributions will represent 5.89% of the total operating expenses. So down a little bit from 2025. We're going to explain the difference here in a second. So the projected contributions are $551,529 for 2026. So compared to 2025 is a decrease of $52,394. So some changes that have contributed to the decrease this year. So the temporary decrease in the finance manager position, again temporary because it's a pilot project, it resulted in contribution reduction of $23,000. So the health, we had some changes to our benefits this year. So the health benefit rate adjustment increase contributed to cost by $14,000. So a big one here was we saw an increase in health for the family for $356.60 to $406.53. So there also was the increase for single as well. I just included one number for comparison, so that's almost a 2% increase. There was, however, no change in dental, no change in EAP, and no change in basic life. So some good news. We saw a LAPP rate above YMPE change for 2026. So the rates decreased, so they are now below YMPE, so yearly maximum pensionable earnings. So those are the rates that you see, sorry?
So there's no chance in, is it chance or change in basic life?
Change.
No change.
Okay.
Oh, thanks so much.
I read it over and over and over again. I'm going, I gotta ask that question.
Yeah, apologies, Councillor Busher. There's no chance in basic life this year. We've scrapped it. No, that's a good catch.
It's just too high to put on.
Yeah, so, I pepper these in just to make sure you guys are paying attention. Okay, so this is the below rate. So a decrease is 7.52%. Previously, it was 8.45%. And then the above YMP is now 10.32. So previously 11.65. So that translates to a decrease in contribution costs of $21,492. So really great news.
So Allegra, I assume that the employee contribution also decreased by the same amount. So that's normally how it works. So this is good news for us and good news for our employees. So they continue to contribute to the pension plan. The amount that they contribute is going, the amount that they have to contribute as a percentage of their paycheck goes down, but it has not affected the benefits of the pension plan at all. So this is basically telling us that the pension plan is doing just fine in the markets right now. It is, so basically what it's saying is employees and employers are over contributing, so the plan is very healthy.
And they're getting a good return on their
Yeah,
investments.
Well managed plan. So these are increases, or these changes are changes that we don't have any control over, but they do have an impact on our budget. This will be something I'm gonna earmark for next year for, if the information's available to me for the October cow to provide a list to you ahead of the meetings, just so that you have some additional context from LAPP and from ABBs. Is there any questions about the changes in the contributions? So there's a lot of information, these like few slides, so I don't want to rush through them. So this is a composition of the wages and contributions per department year over year. You can see many significant changes. So there was a bit, because we did remove the finance manager position, because it's now the contract is within other expenses. So we're not gonna, like, we did see a bit of a shift due to that. And then with the addition of the occupational health and safety coordinator, it changed the composition a little bit, but not significantly. Other than for departments like CSS, that has a small allocation to wages. Okay, so now we're getting into overhead. So always a great topic, insurance premiums. I'm sure personally we all know that rates have been steadily increasing. With the town, it's been increasing at a pretty comparable differential, although when we go over actuals versus budget, when we have our year-end financials, you'll see that there are some departments where we did see an increase, like for example, like water, which I think we can all kind of deduct as to why water insurance has increased for municipalities. So projected insurance premiums were $197,418. So for 2025, we budgeted $186,787. The premiums totaled $179,469. So we always want to err on the side of caution with the insurance premiums. We typically budget about a differential of between like 2 to 5%, depending on the areas, like the levels of risk. This is something that when we do receive our insurance invoice next year, it's something that I bring to council so you can see the budget versus actual and any differences there to give extra context. But I acknowledge that there's two new faces at the table, so it's information that I can provide as well if you'd like to see it for these meetings. So for projected power charges, they're at $461,800. For reference, streetlights account for just under 40% of the total. So actual power charges for 2025 were $443,728. Again, a contributor to this is those increased delivery fees. They just keep driving up the costs of power, unfortunately.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah, you don't belong to here.
Have we changed the style of, maybe Cliff knows, what kind of lights do we got in those? Or they are?
I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate answer to that. I do know that they did come through a few years back and do an upgrade to them, but I don't know the specifics.
LED.
Are they now?
Yeah, they're all the ones, they changed all the LEDs a few years ago.
Allegra, normally at Alberta Munis in the breakout sessions, they sponsor each breakout session by one of the different bundles they present. I don't know if any of us were at any this year that had the AMSC financial picture. But I did hear a conversation where they said that they didn't think it was gonna be as impactful based on their last year, the amount of claims they had and all that kind of stuff. So this might be an area where we might see a benefit this year, it's hard to say.
And that would be so great to see.
I think they,
But we always want to, oh, sorry.
sorry, I think, would they, $7.5 million
Surplus.
surplus, so
Yeah.
overall?
They did have a quick announcement about it in the general session, but normally in the breakouts, they have
A little more
a detailed prognosis and what have you. But I wasn't able to get to anything that had that presentation, but it might be an area where we see something.
And budgeting for insurance is really tough. So we go based on the information we have in previous years, and we try and match it up because our budgets are so tight. So we try and err on the side of caution, but we also don't want to be too overcautious and then essentially like pad our budget. But with insurance, they ask for so much information for us, like from us leading up to the renewal. They want like asset listings, they want conditions, they want us to fill out all these questionnaires. They ask us like some wild questions. I should actually remember some of them as like a fun fact. But they don't really give us a lot of information. And so we don't really have a basis other than previous years when compiling this. So maybe some good feedback for them for the next, if you're talking to any of the stakeholders there.
You wouldn't be impressed with their financial presentation.
So as riveting as this one?
Oh, no, it's like 4 lines.
So-
You had something?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, one of the things that hit me as I was reviewing this, this weekend, and when we talked about the reduction in consumption of, you know, our water and gas, and how that reflects. And when you know, the increased delivery fees, et cetera, so our charged rate includes all of the delivery fees included in it. When you get your power bill, they have your kilowatt hours, that's what they buy it from. So they're basically firing that straight across. Then their delivery charges are their infrastructure and their overhead and all
Transmissions.
the transmissions and buildings. So I'm gonna make I think a fairly strong hypothesis here. They're seeing a lot of the same things that we're seeing with, as people get educated, I guess, and you know, they put power smart appliances in their homes, et cetera, so that consumption goes down, but their overhead doesn't go down. And so what you've got is this increase, less units. They've just broken out the units. We haven't done that yet. It is one of the options that we can do, is we can say, we can move to a billing system that says, here's what you bought your water for, this is what you bought your gas for, and here's the delivery charges, you know, those overhead charges. It's an option that we could move to show, here's what you're buying it for, and here's the other cost that is that
It
overhead.
actually gets it to you.
Yeah, it actually gets it to you, right?
Pretty well in the bill. There's a little, in the bottom there, there's a little portion there, it says, this is what we buy it for, here's your rider cost, here's what
But
you're
you actually
paying.
have to do the math.
Well, it's all done.
Well,
A little, in our town utility bills.
Oh, and our bills.
In our bills, yeah,
But not on the power bills.
not in power.
No.
yeah,
Oh, you're talking about that?
yeah.
Oh.
Like, but even if we made it, and I agree it's there, you gotta read your power bill to see it.
Oh,
And
the
I-
power bills are, yeah.
Sorry, you gotta read your utility bill,
Yeah.
even from the town,
Yeah.
to see it. I would guess that 60% of the people don't read it that way. All they're doing is looking at the bottom line and they're going, this is what I'm being charged, right?
60 or whatever.
Yeah, and I think there's an ability for us to be a bit more transparent on how that works. Because right now, like, we show you, the number that Allegra showed you is, that's all inclusive, right? That's an all-inclusive number. So.
Speaking of our utilities, so our projected town gas, water, and sewer, like, so our town building consumption is 106,238. So 2025 actuals, 95,266. So we project consumption based on average commission rates and consumption. So we look at 3-year totals, and then we also look at changes in consumption year over year to arrive at that figure. So WCB premiums, these are pretty cut and dry. We take wages, we take WCB rates, spits out a number. So looking at 46,664, not a significant change, even a little bit from 2025. So projected costs for landline, cell phones, internet access, garbage, and recycling, 37,903. So a slight increase over last year, but again, immaterial. Any questions on these overhead slides? All right, so now into the really exciting part. So over the next few slides, I'm going to take you on a journey as to how we arrived at these utility rate increases. And so I want you to bear with me. There's a lot of spreadsheets. I was coming up with different ways to accurately depict why we made the difficult decision to include the increases, as well as the cumulative effect of these increases in addition to the Fortis franchise fee, so that you have the total picture that we're proposing here today.
Allegra, just before we start into this side, would council look for a 5-minute recess before we go into this part? About an hour and a half.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so motion on the table to recess for 5 minutes. And I'll call that question. All in favor? No opposition, carried. This is where it starts to get brain drain, so you have to.
Punch drunk.
No.
Soon.
Okay, I'll recall the meeting, and we've just slid into utility rate analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, so utility rate analysis. So we're gonna start from the top with water, sewer, garbage, and gas. And then the following slides, we're gonna analyze each of these departments separately year over year to support the increases that we're proposing as applicable. So starting off with water. So we are proposing a variable rate of $2 per cubic meter, which is an increase from the current rate of $1.65. So as a reminder, and for those new to the table this evening, in 2024, we had the rates at $1.45, and in 25 we increased it to $1.65. So for fixed and UCI, we've had the charges will remain constant at $16 per month, so there's been no change since 2023. With the utility infrastructure reinvestment rider at 40 cents per cubic meter. So this was introduced for 2024 at 20 cents. We increased it to, or sorry, 20 cents, we increased it to 40 cents in 25, so that's gonna remain constant as proposed in 2026. With sewer, the variable rate is 75% of the water charge. We're proposing no increase at this time. We increased it from 45% in 2025. Which when we review the cohort groups in a moment here, you'll see that many in our cohort are at 100% for this charge. But again, no change this year. And as well, no change to the fixed and UCI at $16 per month, and there's been no change since 2023. For the garbage services, again, no change to fixed and UCI charge at $8 per month. UCI is utility capital investment. So that's what we put into a reserve account to allow us to take from to fund operating and capital expenditures relating to that reserve. Trying to get out of the habit of using acronyms. So organics are going to continue to be picked up once per month in the winter months. And just a note here with the garbage service charges, as of April 1st of this year, you'll recall that there was the new, I want to get it right, because I don't want to use an acronym, extended producer responsibility. So we no longer incur the cost of recycling, and we're no longer charging our residents that fee of recycling.
Go ahead.
I got a question with regards to that. Have we come any closer to finding out what we're allowed to put in, the recycled? I know it's got nothing to do with budget.
Like in our blue bins?
Yeah. Because nothing has officially come out from this program saying, because we had a list of what you could put in when the recycling was going to Rose Ridge, but there's nothing come out from these people. And before Mr. Winters left, he still hadn't heard anything from them. So.
There is an app you can download on your phone that corresponds to the town of Redwater.
Oh, really?
It has our recycling date on there. It's circular materials app.
See,
And highly recommend you download that app, because if you have a doubt, you type in there what you want to throw in that bin and it'll give you an exact answer.
Yeah, see that, if that was given publicly, that would be nice to know.
Yeah, that's probably something we can throw on the website too.
The last I heard, we hadn't had anything come down.
Yeah.
So,
'Cause it gives you a calendar and it shows you exactly when our recycling days are and everything.
Yeah. We haven't heard officially anything.
Even through Rose Ridge, we've heard nothing.
Yeah.
We'll follow up.
But download that app. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll definitely have to push that out to residents, because that's really useful. We get a lot of questions about recycling constantly.
Yeah.
So that will be great for those that use apps.
They won't be impressed that it's an app. Just to be honest.
Because the people that are asking, they also don't like to go to the website. Which is fine, we're accommodating. We'll have any opportunity to chat with residents. Gas service charges. So this was a rate that we didn't touch last year. We are proposing that we increase it this year to $2.35 per gigajoule, an increase from $2.15. And again, sounding like a broken record, no change to the fixed and UCI charges. So $19 for residential, $38 for commercial. No change since 2023.
Another question. Is this incorporating the $1.50 per riser?
That's that's not the direct answer. So
In order to pay that
$1.50
bill, I guess.
Yeah, so the $1.50 per riser is part of the calculations for these changes here. So there's been several changes in each of the budgets year over year. I'm going to highlight some of the significant ones here, but I'm going to leave that for when we get to those departments and the operations. But I'm just going to go to the first one so I can have a reference here.
Numbers included in it.
Okay, so-
This is next week, right?
So the intention of this, these next few slides here is more of an overarching conversation as to why we're increasing these rates and tying them into the increase in cost to operate each of these utility services. When it comes to the specific costs, like the total administrative costs and the total system operating costs, that's something we're going to dive into in more detail during our operations presentation. So this is a new component for budget this year. And so I would open to feedback. Let me know what you think of these slides, if they're helpful, if maybe there can be different placement. I can incorporate different things to convey the message. So what I've done is I've taken the rates, this is before we changed the variable rate. So we've changed it to $2. But if we weren't to change it, if we were to remain at $1.65 per cubic meter, this would be the outcome. So if you look from 23 over to 2026, in terms of the operating margin, you'll see a steady increase followed by a sharp decline. So what we're seeing in terms of water consumption is residents through, maybe it's a conscious effort, maybe it's a way to kind of mitigate some costs, but we are seeing a decrease in consumption. And it's at a rate where it's not allowing us to sustain our current infrastructure. And so we've analyzed this for each individual utility, so we can analyze them separately and make decisions on those rates as it corresponds to that utility's operating costs. So you'll see the sales in 2026 drop down from 2025, so the 422 to the 373. In a later slide, I will show you what the dollar amounts look like with the changes. It's the colorful one that you see, that you're used to seeing year over year. Going down to the administrative costs, so we are seeing an increase in the costs year over year to maintain the utility. And the primary driver of the operating cost increase, it's maintenance expenses. You'll see the transfer to reserves, utility infrastructure reinvestment rider. So what I want you to pay attention to here is the net profit or deficit in 2026 that's projected. So again, this is before we factor in the increase of the variable rate. Below it, I've included amortization. So a bit of backstory or a bit of a refresher on tangible capital assets. So when we purchase a tangible capital asset or TCA, it goes onto our balance sheet, and then we amortize it over the lifetime of the asset based on our TCA policy. So for example, like most of the underground infrastructure is between 25 to 75 years. So it's amortized on a straight line basis over the lifetime of that asset per our policy. So that's what these numbers represent here, the amortization. Ideally, we want to see the profit to, at a minimum, be in line with the amortization, because then we can then further take that profit in an ideal world and put it back into a reserve account so that when that asset falls off at the end of its useful life, we have money set aside so that we can replace it without having to go in taxation, without having to take out a debenture, which again is not a funding source, it's financing, which I'll share my fun analogy again when we get there. So without any changes to the water variable rate, we are sitting at a deficit in this utility for 2026, which indicates that this is no longer a user pay system and taxation is subsidizing.
If I might, total administrative operating costs, we're showing a 44% increase in 2 years. Can you give us some information on that?
Yeah, so primary driver here is it's the debentures. So as we take out the new debentures,
Right.
we do have the transfer though. So if you'll recall, and I apologize, this will be a huge topic for our January council retreat, but with our we don't want the spreadsheet. So part of our like long-term capital plan is as debentures fall off, to like normalize, just to normalize the expenses, we're taking the debentures as they fall off and we're putting them into a reserve account. So we're still incurring the same expense because it's where we've been at with taxation, and we're taking that for future planning. And so we built this into our 10-year capital plan to continue to invest in our underground infrastructure so we don't have those like critical infrastructure breaks. So this year, I'm getting a bit ahead of the game, but I feel like it's required to like adequately explain this. So we had 2 debentures in Pembina fall off this year, so it went into a reserve account, and I'll show this when we go over the reserve. So it's sitting in the reserve account now. And so with this here, with this administrative cost, so we're gonna see an increase in the cost here for those debentures, but what we're also gonna see is a transfer in for operating revenue. So you'll see like the 32% increase there, like the increase in operating revenue, we're increasing the, where is it? So see the other revenue, the increase from 88,950 to 145?
Yes.
So that's the transfer in.
Okay.
So in order to normalize it, you have to net it out a bit, and that's why it's a bit tricky to see in this format, but this is comparable to the total slides that we see with the 3 that it's in a format that's familiar.
So-
Is that sort of,
So that operating cost change is because of a new infrastructure in the ground?
is the new debenture?
Okay. That's good.
I only know how to answer things in a convoluted way, so I
No,
apologize.
that's, go ahead, Councilor Spicer.
This may be a dumb question too. 2023, 2024, you got all these things. How do you have sales for 2026 already? Projected sale. But how do you
Like how do, like the differential, are you
well,
looking
you've
at the
got
percentage
588,
changes?
and then you got 615, 623, and then you told us that we've had sales of 583 in 2026.
Yeah, so so that's projected, so that's what's included in the budget. Because I had to project sales to determine what revenue we would have to compile the budget.
So what's, I
Why are
think,
you looking at a decrease when like 23, 24, 25 has all been a slight increase? And
So-
then you're saying 26, we're gonna see a massive drop. Why?
So these are, so there's 2 components when it comes to the water sales. So these are based on previous budgeted amounts, not previous actuals. So I guess that's the tricky component here, because we often go in budgeted actuals. So the 2026 is the amount, I think I gotta explain this without making it confusing.
I think what we need to do, Allegra, when we do the operations piece of this is we'll have the actuals, not the budgeted amounts. We'll have the actuals
So
for,
you're going budget, and then you have an actual, that's how, okay.
Yeah, because the budget versus actual, there's typically not a significant differential like year over year with the budget versus actual. Like we budget pretty closely with revenue, so it's typically it's a reliable number.
I guess the question is the 2025 number for sales, was that a budget or is that an actual?
Okay, so I apologize. This, okay, so I'm gonna confirm here, because the spreadsheet that we're using for the 2026, we compare all of the actuals, but it's in consumption. It's not, like it's in the unit that we consume it in, not in the dollar amount that we spent, if that makes sense.
So those are cubic meters of water.
Those are
So
cubic.
these aren't cubic meters, but the amounts that we have like year over year. So this is really good feedback, because I'm trying to assess like the practicality of this format and how I can improve on it year over year.
go ahead, Paul. Okay, so if we're saying that's volumes or whatever,
Oh, these aren't volumes, these are in dollar amounts.
okay, that's what I was just gonna ask. Oh, so the other question I had, so are your other revenue line items, are those projections as well? Because they're,
Those are budgeted amounts, yeah. And those are no significant changes in what, like, we have no reason to significantly change how we're budgeting. Like, there's been no significant changes in bulk sales, in purchases in construction water. This is year over
you
year.
see the difference, like, the first line item for other revenue goes from 88,000 to 145,000.
Yeah, so that is that's the incoming reserve transfer to offset the debentures.
Okay. So, I just kind of an addendum to that, is there a reason why, so I get the value of doing the debentures. I mean, as a consumer, you do the same thing when you pay off a loan or whatever, you keep putting it away. But are we, you know, we putting too much away to kind of offset? Because I mean, if we're putting away at the expense of going into a deficit, even though we're projecting like future projects or what have you, right? Like I wouldn't, it doesn't, it's hard for me to wrap my head around it that way, right?
No, I think this is like a really, really good question. And it's really difficult in the position that you're in, not having the whole picture and not, like with this being like your first budget. So, in one of the later slides, I incorporate the, like the reserves. And so I show like the projected opening balance because again, there's still, it's projected because there's still uncertainties this year, like if projects come in under, over, like, et cetera. So I have the projected opening balance. And then I have all of the transfers in and out to tie everything in. So operating and capital encompasses all of the transfers here that you're seeing. So the transfer reserves and then the utility infrastructure reinvestment rider, for an example here. It has the transfers from operating, and then it has the transfers going back in, like regarding the debenture. And then it shows the net effect. And you'll see that we are utilizing the reserves, even with these transfers, at a faster rate than we're replenishing them. So we're at a negative balance. We're draining these reserves, which is why we have to be so cognizant of this net profit and deficit. And every single year, just circling back to your comment, Councillor Spicer. So with the year-over-year amounts, in the budget sheets, and again, it's really difficult when you guys don't see the portions that when compiling this. So as we're going through the sheet, so we go over each and every single expense item. So I'll take the water sales. And so what I'll do is, in addition to the spreadsheet that I've compiled where I calculate the averages of all of the consumption for the last, I think it's like 6 years, like just to look, but it's average of 3 just to be consistent. We also look at the dollar amount as a whole. And so we look at trends there and see, okay, so from 22, 23, 24, projected for 25, what are our values at for dollar amounts? And then we see what we're projecting for consumption and then the current rates. And so we take the dollar amount that is, and we take the dollar amount based on like the averages there, and like what is reasonable to expect for income. And so that's how we arrive at the number there. A really convoluted explanation, but there's a lot of thought that goes into these numbers year over year to have them in line as possible. But again, there's so many variables when it comes to water consumption, and this was a particularly difficult year with water because we had the fire, so we had more water consumption. So how do we normalize that?
And just to support what you're saying, the commission as a whole is seeing that decrease in consumption across the board.
So did we not recoup that water from the fire?
We did, but it's still skewed I think we did to for the most extent, because there was, my understanding is there might have been some usage that, actually not too sure if I can speak on it, but we did invoice Sturgeon County for the water consumption when they were filling at the water station. But if they were filling from hydrants, my understanding is that there was no way to accurately track that. So there would have been more consumption. So it's something that we had to look at to normalize so that we weren't overestimating that expense on the consumption side and maybe underestimating sales, or it somehow skewing what we're budgeting for this year.
So we don't have a meter for the hydrants?
If I might, I'll just throw this out. We had a situation where trucks came in and found the first hydrant they could find, which necessarily resulted in
Yes.
Free water.
it also caused us some dollars and cents for hydrant wear because the hydrants aren't designed for that type of process. But basically it became I need water, where is it, and go. So there was probably some loss, but the extent we don't know.
I think the best way to explain this was, we tried very hard to have a designated hydrant to fill from.
Yeah.
But standing in line wasn't a priority for some of the operators, and so they literally would drive, the hydrant that we had designated was over in the industrial area, out kind of
Right by Trialtis.
as far east as we could get it. But if there was somebody filling there and a truck came in, we saw trucks filling in front of Home Hardware, right? And so, bottom line was, they're a bit on the honor system of reporting, hey, I took a load. How accurate that is, you know, and so I think, long story short, what we're trying to do is, we don't want to budget for that amount of water again, so we're trying to take you know, be as realistic as we can at taking that out of the equation. Again, it kind of skewed what our water use is doing, you know, on an annual basis, and so that's the art, not the science of this, I guess, is probably the best way to put it.
Go ahead.
Going back to my question, it's just so I think I figured, so the first, the 23, 24, 25, that was the budgeted amounts for those years.
Yeah.
Right? And then 26 is what you're projecting based on the actuals.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Okay.
So this is, and like, the difficult part of my job is like, I see, because you'll see, like, not this value because this is before I make the changes, but in like a couple, like maybe 3 slides from now, you'll see the dollar amount that will correlate with the dollar amount in Garnett's presentation, and it all just ties together. Just not right now.
The other part of this that makes it tough is, we're not through 2025 yet.
No.
Right? And so this was put together probably based on September's actuals, right? Of what's in September, maybe even August. So we're still kind of projecting another 3 or 4 months of consumption, trying to put together what that's gonna look like, you know, in September of 2025, what it's gonna look like at the end of December of 2026.
Well, and the full effect of changing the rate from 45% to 75% on the sewer, that a lot of people, that's kind of, it's finally dawned on them and saying, hey, okay, I need to change my consumption based on that, so.
I think the good news is, people are educating themselves and they're doing what they need to do to, you know, to, as Allegra said, control their costs. Bad news is, that affects us in a negative manner financially, but it does affect us in a positive manner, maintenance and all the rest of that, right? So we should see those benefits come on down the road to some extent. Time will tell us how much, right?
I think some like applicable analogies here might be like, maybe you're a business owner and times are tough and people are spending less money, but you still have the same fixed costs. Only now your building is older, so now you're incurring more costs to you know, address those repairs. So you have to somehow find a way to bridge the gap. Or, you know, personally, like, you have the same income coming in, but you're in an older house, you have more costs. Which we do here with our aging infrastructure. So is there any more questions on water before I move on to the much easier sewer discussion?
Go ahead.
Perfect. All right, so sewer, again, no changes proposed here. Just wanted to draw attention to the change between 2025 and 26. Again, for 25, because as Mr. Van Buel mentioned, we're not at the end of the year. So what I did with those figures, I basically extrapolated it. So I took the average of November over the last 3 years, December, October, to arrive at that figure. So it's 2025 projected. So you'll see the impact of the increase in sewer rates from 24 to 25, and then from 25 to 26, because this is directly correlated to water consumption, because water consumption revenue is decreasing, so is sewer revenue. But we're still within reason of amortization, and because we had that increase last year, it just wasn't a rate that we were proposing at this time to increase. And at 75%, it gives us more room in the future if we do need to increase it. But again, not proposed at this time.
Allegra, a new phrase for me that I haven't seen in the budgets before. What are you referencing as operating margin? What does that actually mean to me, the reader?
Yeah, so operating margin, so that would be, it's a little bit tricky for sewer because there's no operating margin, but for water, it would be the cost of, so it's the revenue of selling the water, less the cost of purchasing the water and any direct costs to that. Give you an operating margin. Some fancy terms.
Safe to
Thank
say, so that net profit or deficit before amortization is your profit, is what Dave's talking about?
No, sorry, the operating margin.
Up at the top, there's a line that says operating margin.
It's kind of a duplication there. I was trying to keep the slides as consistent as possible.
No problem.
I don't love the
I just didn't know the term. I hadn't heard it.
I welcome any opportunity to talk about accounting. Were there any more questions on the sewer budget? It's pretty consistent year over year. Okay, so garbage. Councilor Olson's gonna ask about the amortization for garbage again.
No.
Because I have it ready. Not your 1% though. Okay, so garbage, again, similar format. So we have the fixed charges, highlighting the fact that the recycling charges are gone, and you don't see the detail there, but the recycling costs have also dropped off. No changes to garbage. When we renegotiated, so I say we, administration, it was before my time, but my understanding was that the garbage contract was renegotiated at the end of the term. The rates came in at a lower rate than previously, so the cost to the consumer remained the same. The difference, like the revenue, the difference between the revenue coming in for exactly garbage and then the expenses coming out that we were being charged, was put to reserves for utilities to help support utilities as a whole. And that's why there's, even though you're seeing the net deficit there, it's lower than what that transfer is. For this year, the transfer is projected at $56,535. So the transfer to reserves, you see the 67,371. So of that, the transfer to reserves is the dividend is what it's called in the reserve spreadsheet. So that exceeds the 26,903 deficit. And just as a fun fact, so the amortization is, so it's from the transfer station upgrade in 2012. We still have a net book value of $44,800, so it's only amortized 13 years, a useful life of 25, so a little bit of time before that falls off. But there's no budget impact, it's just $3,200 is gonna show up year over year. And the last one before we summarize everything. So again, this is before the gas increase. So you'll notice a huge drop in sales. So for gas sales, I have some consumption figures here. So in 2021, we had 228,000 and change in gigajoules. 2022, 229,000. 23 was 204,000. 2024, 197,000. Then 180,000 projected for the last few months based on averages. So for these calculations, I've projected consumption to be at 184,000. Last year was a seasonably warm winter. It seems like we're having that this year. Yeah.
So is that, do we know where that is? Is it consumer consumption or is it commercial? What that difference is?
So
our consumption has been going down year over year,
Yep.
right? So is that because citizens are using less gas or because commercial businesses are using less?
So unfortunately, unless I analyze every single utility bill as a whole, I can just speak in like kind of general terms. So we've seen year over year a decrease in consumption related to an increase in the weather. We see that winters are getting warmer year over year. Especially with the carbon levy, we saw a decrease in consumption because, again, it was a cost-saving measure, but within reason because we still need to heat our homes. So it's just an area that people can cut. They're being more conscious. They're not keeping their homes as warm. As to whether or not it's tied to commercial or not, again, it would take an analysis of all of the utility bills to like know definitively.
think it would be important to know that though, if it is business related. So that tells me, if I'm looking at it from that perspective, that tells me either businesses are going out of town and they don't need to heat their buildings or whatever, or there's some other reason they're trying to cut that cost for themselves, right? Whereas consumer, I think the consumer ones would be probably fairly, a little more consistent in their usage versus a business.
If it's council's direction, we can do a complete analysis of every utility bill in terms of gas consumption for the coming year. It would just be a discussion on capacity, I guess, and what the offset would be. It's a really good point. That would be really interesting to know. We could talk to our cohorts about it.
This is a possibility. You could do a sample analysis, 10 business and 10 residents, and see if there's a proportionate, disproportion of percentage decrease.
So with the analysis, like what, how many years would you want it to span?
I think we could probably just do it till last year, like a year or two. I don't think we need to go crazy with it, but just.
Yeah, so, so like 23, 20, or 24, 25?
Sure.
Okay, and so, like, for like sample range, are you looking at like maybe 10 businesses, 10 residential, or 20?
I think that's probably fair, right?
Yeah,
It just gives us an
Just a
idea.
snippet.
I'm just thinking that the analysis would show a disproportionate
Yeah.
difference. So if you had residences and business using less at the same rate,
Yes.
you would see that differential moving in the same direction at the same speed. If you have one that's doing it opposite to the other, you will see that disproportionate differential.
So, and I guess.
My new word, disproportionate differential.
It's a really good word. I also really like convoluted, so that's good too. I guess like with the consumption too, what might skew the results as well, I'd have to think about how to present it, because it takes a lot less to heat a house as it would to heat like a larger building, like say this one as well. And then I guess it would depend on staffing, is it a Monday to Friday business? Is it like 7 days a week? So I'll find businesses that kind of encompass.
Do we know if Secure Energy's made any changes to their plant? They have?
I don't.
That's likely where the gas went.
So, part of our difference this year is Secure was down for a couple of months, and they're not running at full capacity right now. Was my last update. So, they're looking at
That's significant.
Yeah, it's significant.
Right
Yes.
there.
I apologize, I didn't know that.
So you've got the industry side of things, you've
Yeah.
got the commercial side of things, and the residential side of things.
And I guess the best thing would be to take those really big users and see, because that would be an easy thing to use year over year.
Yeah.
But then my question to you is, so we have this information, what do we do with it? Would it just be like an information piece so we had additional context?
It'd be for that, for sure.
Yeah.
But,
I think it depends on what it says, though.
yeah, I think it depends on what it says, because we charge, like, that rate is for everybody, correct? We don't charge commercial customers more or less, right? So that would be a consideration then, right? Commercial customers get, we have a commercial rate and we have a public rate.
Stores do.
I know
And your grocery.
some co-ops do, depending on the size of the meter.
The meter, yeah.
They go by meter size, and this size will be X amount.
Because we do have the residential and commercial monthly rates, like differences there.
For water, right?
For gas, sorry. The $19 for residential and $38 for commercial.
Yeah.
For gas, so.
It's a very hard analysis to do, because every brand new home is being built today is way more,
Energy efficient.
it's sealed like a little bubble, so it doesn't lose as much energy as they used to too. So if you pick an older home and a newer home, you're gonna get all kinds of.
Well, I think, yeah, you have to do a representative sample, right?
four in the same block.
Somehow you gotta find 10 or 15 and just do them randomly. The same thing with the
Commercial.
commercial and see what's going on.
So what I'm gonna encourage you guys, like coming out of these meetings too, is think about ideas like this, just like different strategies that we can talk about too in January, and just like really explore these, like, so I can have just additional information to compile the budget for next year. This is a really interesting budget to present when it's a different composition than when we started this process, and it's my first experience. It's my third lap, so thank you for bringing that different perspective. I really appreciate it. So just bringing it down, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just bringing it down to the net profit deficit amortization. So again, you'll see that decline there because the costs have been pretty consistent year over year. We are seeing an increase in maintenance cost as everything is it's aging out. And again, during the operating budget presentations, we have it separated out like per department. So you'll see some more details there that contribute to these increases. But we're just now dipping below amortization for 2026. And again, that's before the variable rate increase, which we incorporate right here.
I agree. On the amortization, how do we account for the fact that by legislation, we're replacing a percentage of the infrastructure being the meters every year with new meters? And our amortization is supposed to flow regular, so how do we account for the addition of new equipment into the old system, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so there are two separate sides of the house. So when we're talking about like the underground infrastructure, that is a capital item because it's over the threshold of $5,000. What's tricky is the meters. They do extend 1 year in useful life, so they're beyond the operational period. However, they're below the threshold of $1,000 or $5,000. So they don't meet the requirements of.
So we don't treat those as a cumulative expense. They're an individualized expense.
Yeah.
One meter costs $1,100, good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's the same with meters across the board. And if you'll recall, during one of our many reserve conversations, we were talking about, I think it was water meters specifically, and Chris, please like correct any part of this that is wrong. There's a bunch that are falling off, like they're coming up for replacement because they're failing at like an increasing rate. And so it's something that is like same with like water, gas meters, it's something that's on a cycle. So what we could do is we could take the dollar amount for all of those and we could project it out over 10, 15, 25 years, find a way to normalize that expense by flowing it through reserve so we don't have those impacts as things fail, because unfortunately we can't capitalize it, but regardless of whether it's, I guess, a capital cost or an operating, it still kind of comes from the same pool. So have to fund it somehow. Convoluted answer.
So one of the options, depends on how detailed we want to get with our reserves. Reserves don't have to just be for capital items. We can have reserves to normalize as those operational items.
Which we're doing for elections. We're doing that over the election one, right?
Exactly.
Start small, work our way up to get some of these bigger.
Yeah.
So we can use those same concepts, right? And again, these are some of the discussions that we're bringing up right now because in January, February, when we talk about this, it'll help us map out that next 4 years for this council and what it means. And we can start to project, okay, here's where you hit a wall, or here's where here's where you get over the hump, kind of thing, right?
Okay.
And we are using it for operating expenses like the reserves right now. When we get to the reserves portion of these presentations, I've highlighted because it's in red whether or not we're taking money out, but in brackets I'll have whether it's capital or operating, just so we can see how we're utilizing these reserves. And with one in particular, I won't, actually I'm gonna leave it for Garnet, I'm not gonna steal his thunder. All right, so Hopefully this one's a little bit easier to see. Again, I apologize. I know you guys have them up on your screens too. I know these can be a little bit difficult to read. So this is, this will be like the 2026 column in every single one. The exception is that we have now incorporated the changes. So with water, it's that 2% increase, or sorry, that increase to $2 from $1.65. And from gas, it's the increase from $2.15 to $2.35. So you'll see it in purple. That's what we've changed. Everything else has remained the same. So you'll see how that translates here. So so net profit for water is now sitting at $31,000, $31,417. And the profit is now, sales is $645,835. So $645,835. So significant change. I'm going to summarize this with a percentage of tax increase in the slide following this too, because I'm not going to do that mental math. So, sorry, I don't want to bounce around too much. So we were sitting at a deficit of just below $74,000 with water, and that helped us bridge the gap. Again, going over to gas, we're now sitting at a profit of $100,000. So if we look at the collective of all of the utilities, we're at $310,000, which exceeds amortization, which has now converted our utilities to a user pay system. Well, not fully, because again, we're still not putting away money to account for the amortization, but we're chipping away at it with our reserve transfers, with our cost strategy. Just to summarize here, I've included some utility comparisons as well for your reference. One thing I just want to highlight here is the water consumption for sewer. We're at 75, Bonaccord Gibbons is 100, Rimby is at 70%, Kalmar is at 50%.
Interesting to note in that slide too, that Rimby and Warrenville are suggesting they're at their service capacity for their sewer. Might have some big bills coming up. They might have some big bills coming up. Oh, go ahead.
So just on when you were going municipality comparisons there, do we have their variable rates?
So it's really tough to compare variable rates within municipalities because the rate structures are so different. So Kalmar is a good example of that there. So they have a charge per like $93 per the first 10.80 or 10.88 cubic meters, and then $1.85 per cubic meter, after that. And then a different commercial rate as well with like a 2-tier system. Rimby is based on, I'm assuming the diameter.
Service size.
Water meter
Okay.
size.
Thank you so much. So it's just, this is something it's really difficult to compare. And so as much as we want to be, because I understand the premise of wanting to be comparable with our cohort or our surrounding communities. We all have different states, not necessarily. I mean, our problem isn't unique to us with the aging underground infrastructure, but what we may require in the next few years is not necessarily the same as these other municipalities, and we can't rely on the fact that their structure right now is at a cost recovery and they're planning to mitigate these significant infrastructure breaks. So I guess that's my caution with the next two slides, is to use this with a grain of salt, because ultimately we want to be in a position where we can continue to provide these service levels to our users.
So that's a trade-off though then, right? So if thinking of development here, wanting people to come here, but everything costs more here, right? Versus, and so it's that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, to stay kind of, ahead of everybody else. And that's why I think it's important to, like, if one of these communities is significantly, different from ours, where I like to think because we're part of a co-op, we have advantages that come with that, whereas other folks don't, where they're taking city gas or whatever it is, right? And I get our portion of, you know, infrastructure, aging infrastructure, and being able to do that. I think we need to weigh it against that other side too, right? So,
No, absolutely.
not really a question, but yeah, just kind of a observation. So,
No, it's a really good statement.
Go ahead.
If you look right now, Paul, at the water sewer rate for Redwater, Monacord, and Gibbets, at the commodity price per cubic meter, we're all buying it for the same price.
okay, no, that's
They're all on the Water Commission, right?
We're on the
yeah,
same
well, yeah,
commission.
okay, water would
Yeah.
be the same. Drop.
And that, so, but when you're talking with regards to gas, yes, we do outperform Apex and EPCOR or ADCO every year as far as lower gas prices. But then, of course, it's what gets added on here at the utility,
Okay,
so.
thank you.
Now I'm confused.
For the third year in a row,
These
I
days
look
it
at this and I'm like, I really don't want to include it because it's like, and it might be something I spent a little bit of time with to try and like, I don't know, call it a bit. And like, especially when we get to gas, like don't even look at gas.
Well, no, I mean, 'cause
It's so
like you
tough
said,
to
it's, each council and each municipality sets their own rates, and we are not somewhat, I guess you can, especially when it comes to this utility, yes, we're not the same as the others. We own our own utility, you know? So,
The only question I had on this one is, it seems we're ahead of the game as far as the wholesale price. And I don't quite understand why. Our wholesale price is $1.57 a gigajoule, and everybody else is much less than that.
So none of the numbers that you're seeing in this slide or this, so the gigajoule, the wholesale amount, I can verify that, but that's the wholesale amount that's in. What's tricky about compiling budget is as we're doing our budget, and we saw that with the water commission rate that you brought me today. So this was like, this is something that, so Liz compiles this and she does it in August. And I review it as I'm compiling the budget and I spot check it to see where things are. And the wholesale one might be overstated, but it's not within our calculations that you saw here. Because these are as of, I want to say 8 days ago. I won't have the water rate because you just got that to me today.
because they should be,
So that's,
wholesale price should be the same across the board.
Just about, yeah.
Because all four here listed, Coronado, Thorild, and Smoky, are all part of the federation.
and it's the wholesale prices for Coronado Thor, like, so this would be based on their utility rate bylaw, where ours is based on our proposed rate now. So again, it's kind of tricky, unless you got the bills too, like these comparisons are really tricky to compile.
Yeah, I just think what we're saying is that because we all belong to the same co-op,
Should be the same.
we should be
Wholesale
comparable.
price should be the same.
Yeah.
But ours appears to be out of whack. I can understand a nickel or a dime, but 30, 40 cents
Yeah.
doesn't seem correct.
Yeah, and even like the 10-cent differential with Thorhild, like that's probably reasonable. But if ours is a bit higher, I'll look into that. I made a note of it just to.
It can be from day to day though, right? Because that wholesale price changes constantly, does it not? Counselor
They
Olson?
usually lock it in for the month or so, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, so it depends on when she pulled those numbers.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that.
I guess
That was what jumped out at me when I
Yeah.
was reviewing it. Was
It's tough because we don't know when the information that we're getting from the municipalities, like when that was compiled, and it's something like I could look at this every 2 or 3 weeks just to make sure it's current. But in terms of, I guess my focus was on the dollars in like the budget as opposed to.
I think the biggest question is, are we comparing October 2025 with October 2025? Or are we comparing July 2025 with January 2025?
Yeah.
Right.
And what might change with this format next year is maybe I call Coronado Gas and I ask them, like, what are you charging your end user? Can you send me an example of a utility bill? Like, you can redact the names, and then I can try and find a way to like line it up a bit differently. Because I've never really loved how these are formatted, but I also, it's just not, I don't know. There's too many differences, not with gas, but with the
Well,
other
there's
ones.
lots of variables that come into play.
Okay, so first franchise fee. So again, we're proposing a increase of 2% from 10 to 12. So the last increase occurred in 2023. We brought it from 8 to 10. So based on the Fortis franchise fee calculator, the increase will result in an increase of franchise fees of $53,408. So if we were to trigger this for Jan 1, we would have been able to recognize that in our budget projections here. But it will not take place until April 2026, so we've prorated it at $36,081.
Do you know what that would equate to for an average home?
Yes, I do. I summarize all of these too, so we can see. I took 3 different samples, 3 different residential households. No commercial though.
Just to add to this, at the summer Leaders Caucus, we heard the Minister of Safety and whatever tell us that last year the province had, or this current year, their current year, the province had swallowed approximately 29% increase in policing costs. And the comment was, we won't be doing that next year. And we've heard that a second time last week at the Alberta Unis, that the policing cost is going to be significant. And we've used this specifically with respect to the policing costs. And Councillor Smith goes back to, and Councillor Butcher, I think Rob as well, when we didn't have to pay any policing costs.
Yeah.
And you're projecting this year 180 something or 175 something.
133,
Yeah.
170 something, 176, 76.
So, you know, that's a huge cost to a small municipality. It doesn't come easy to figure out how to pay that, so. Just thought I'd throw that in.
And we used to get paid from them.
Well, that was the other thing.
Yeah.
All of the revenue created by their tickets in town came back to the municipality minus the victim surcharge fee. So we would get a considerable chunk at the end of any given year. But we lost that, and we had to make the payments, and then we don't have any say now with the policing structure for control and development, so.
In my understanding with the Fortis franchise fee is it's a fee that we didn't look at increasing in 24 and 25 because we didn't see those increases. If you'll recall from year 4 and year 5 of the most recent police funding model, the ask from us was constant. So there was no increase to the franchise fee, with the understanding that if these were to increase, this would be an option available to us to increase or to offset the increase. Another option, of course, would be taxation, but you'll see the percentage here in a second. So based on the Fortis franchise calculator, the estimated residential bill impact is approximately $14.27 per
year.
That's
That should be per year,
should be per year.
So it's it's $1.77 per month if it's if it's, if the franchise fee remain constant. So the differential, per month is actually, it's 12 something, I can't, whatever, 1427 less 177.
The example you have there is a $1.18 difference from 10% to 12%.
The 1427 is per year.
Yeah, so this, if you look like the first square there, so that's if there are no changes. So if we, I think I had to explain this without it not making or with it. So these two here, it's not. It's if there were no changes to the D&T, and then if there are like the changes like based on. Sorry, I'm butchering this.
Your examples are showing $2 difference,
Correct.
so that would be,
Yeah, so it must be per year. I apologize.
no, that's,
One thing to note here is the regional comparators. So Bon Accord's at 19, Legal's at 20, Morinville's 20, Calmar 20, Fort Macleod, McGrath, Rimley like 15, 15, 20, Crossfield 17. Gibbons is still at 10% for now. Toefield surprisingly at 5%. I'm interested to see what their budget looks like. So where it can be difficult to compare some of our utility fees, this is an easy comparison with our
This has been said other years, but this is one of the fairest areas that we can add a fee to them because everybody pays it.
Yeah.
We have so many properties here that do not pay any taxes to us. Schools, hospitals, the police station, churches. I think it's only a small sample of them. They pay no taxes to it, but here, this is a way for us to.
User pay is always the fairest.
Exactly.
User pay.
I will say that the province is committed to bringing their grants in lieu of taxes back to 100%. But as of right now, they're still only at 75%. So bottom line is, if you put this on, as you pointed out, if you put this on the tax base, there are users of the service who benefit without paying.
who assesses their properties?
You know, it's,
I just thought I'd ask that.
all right, so we're getting close
sorry,
to.
just one note on this, there is a cap on what the
20%.
what the province allows, and it is at 20%. So when you're at 20%, you're maxed out.
Yeah. And although our strategy is to use this to offset policing, it's these other communities might have been using it to offset some other cost. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with the increased policing costs.
Go ahead.
What was our increase in, we're figuring 30% increase on our policing, so that was gonna be more like 39, 40,000.
39,000, 40,000, 39 and change, I
So
think.
this is lower, for the first year, we'll have less, than it'll cover that, so we're still making up some. So
Yeah.
the possibility is to throw it out there, possibility of going to 13 instead of 12.
Absolutely. That is council's direction. We can.
I know that just offsets the first year, and then the next year, that does give us some more leeway there, but it does help us pay off maybe a debenture on the,
Yeah.
something a little,
Is there any way to kickstart this faster than April?
yeah, to do this sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To have this
Yeah, you have to do
question
it by
sooner.
October 1st, I believe. to
Oh,
get it in.
okay.
Yeah.
They need a 3-month leeway to get it in place. I think, I'll throw this out, and it's an idea, and it's not included in this budget at all, but one of the things that, you know, Councilor Spicer, if you did want to increase it, we know this year isn't the last increase. You know, it might be advisable, and I'd have to think about this a little bit more, to start a bit of a reserve fund to cushion the next increase, because the next increase on policing, quite frankly, it's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. And we know that they held off a big increase in 2025. They're gonna give us a big increase in 2026. Hopefully, they'll give us an idea what 2027 is, but that has not been the pattern.
So going with
Give it to us
13.
1 year at one year at a time.
So going to that 13 might be that enough just to leave a little bit of a buffer for the next year, not have to go to 14 or 15 right away, but eventually have to.
And that could be part of the strategy. So I just want to bring this table up here because I have, so year 1 through year 5 of the policing costs and then the percentage increase. So you'll see the huge jump followed by held for year 5, but we know that this coming year it's not. So if, so like hypothetically, either like we were increased at 13%, or this was in 2027, so the increase, say for whatever reason, they decided to hold for 2 years because they're kind. So we have like the $39,000 or whatever the increase is, but we're receiving $53,000. So it could be a reserve strategy that we talk about during like the retreat, where the difference is put to a policing reserve account to offset or to help normalize these increases year over year.
And just for council, at Alberta Munis, we had a very good meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Yes.
And during that meeting, we brought up this exact scenario of us pounding out budgets coming into the end of the year, and we still don't know what they're going to give us as a cost, and asked them if, not to prejudge a budget, but if they could adjust their cycling so that we would know what the next year is going to be earlier, it would certainly help us out in putting together our budget packet. And the minister was appreciative of the fact that what concern this does cause for us, but at the same time, he wasn't able to tell us he could do anything to make it better. But we're definitely behind the 8 ball, because 5 years ago, we didn't have a cost, and now we're looking at a large increase.
Almost $160,000.
Yeah.
170,000 in the end.
6%.
Something else too is to think about this is maybe this is something we do bring in the end of August, September, so that we can notify them by the October 1st that we intend, rather than having this delay too. I don't know how much information we'd have, and if that we can make a good decision based on that.
Again, I think, Mr. Mayor, members of council, you know, one of the LGFF program is flawed in a number of ways, but one of the things that it does do for us is it projects 3 years in advance, so we can at least plan for it. You know what, even if it's bad news, at least you have the opportunity to plan for it. So, and, you know, if that's all they do for us on policing costs, if they go, look, you know what, you're gonna see an increase here, you're gonna see an increase here, you're gonna see an increase here. Look, it's bad news, get it, but at least we can start planning for it. If we have that information, then I think we can have the, you know, the right conversation earlier, so that we're not prorating and kind of falling behind. Without that information, though, we're guessing, right? I mean, even in this budget, guessing 30%.
It could be 50.
It could be 50%, it could be 20%, it could be 10%. You know, it all depends on, you know, what you want to use as a definition of significant. We used 30% because the number that they told us they held off on was 29. There's no more science to why we use 30 than that.
The other thing too, and I'll use the St. Albert argument to support the province just a little bit with respect to this whole process, is that in the middle of everything, St. Albert got a huge bill as a contractor of the RCMP because of the body cam, new pistols, body armor,
And wage increase.
That no municipality had any input to. It was a negotiation between the federal government and the RCMP, and they dictated. And I want to say that St. Albert got 2.3 or 2
Somewhere around
It
there.
was a big bill.
$1 million increase in 1 year. And I know their 1% tax increase has a larger number to it than ours does, but just think about getting a 2.3 or 2.4, whatever it was, $1 million bill that you had no negotiation power in. You had no say in it at all.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, that increase got sent to all the contractors. In our case, our contract is through the province, through the federal government. St. Albert's is directly with the federal government, which is why they got it passed on right away. And that was what the province held off on last year, was that increase. And they said it was about 29%. So,
And that was my argument with the superintendent.
Exactly, yeah.
We order a cop with a gun and everything, and because you buy new guns, why should we have to pay for it?
Yeah. Probably because we're their only source of revenue.
This one, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the pain points, and the biggest part of the pain point outside of the number is, like I said, it's a guess right now. And we won't know this number as an actual. My guess is until the budget comes out in March sometime, normally the beginning of March, because the province has an April 1st
Deadline, yeah.
that's the start of their fiscal year. Sometime in March, we'll get this, and we'll have to deal with it in our final tax rate budget, or tax rate bylaw, sorry.
So one option here too, if, so say hypothetically, like best case scenario, they acknowledge that, okay, we're pretty late to the game here, we're gonna like hold for a year, but then we're gonna have an increase. So we could take the balance and put it into reserve to offset for the next year. Just kind of throwing out some ideas here, for when we have more information. But again, just to err on the side of caution, based on the information we have provided, 30% increase, almost complete offset here, for 2026 to allow that to be more user pay.
Just, did we ever think of requisitioning for police?
Quick answer to that is no. I don't think we've ever had that discussion about doing a separate requisition. Now, the province has put in some new guidelines about how we can break out and what we can show on our tax notices. And my understanding is it's related to some municipalities putting specific numbers in their tax bill saying, this is going to this, this is going to this. And I think the one that stung was the regional governance boards, the Capital Region Board and the Calgary Metro Board. I think those were the two where there was a lot of municipalities saying, this is what belonging to this board is costing you, and we don't have any choice because the province is making us. And so there are some new regulations about what you can put on your tax bill and what you can split out.
I like the idea, but the negative would be is how the province viewed it, right? It's kind of what you were saying.
So I think the big thing to remember here is anything that we do, based on the new regulations in Bill 50, we can't do anything that is contrary to provincial law or against provincial policy. So if they say it's our policy to do X, they can literally come in now and say that bylaw is basically ultra-vires, right? It doesn't follow that regulation, so.
That might be something to look into.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree, and like I said, the short answer to that is, I don't think we've had that discussion, but it's probably a worthwhile discussion to have.
If I remember correctly, when the policing costs first came out, we were told we could not separate those on our tax bill. But I think that has changed, if I'm not mistaken.
I said,
But I could
something
be.
I'd have to look into, and I
could be.
start that.
I've mentioned before, that was the whole reason we went with this. We went years with nothing, and then when they started
That was the
policing,
only reason we
the only reason we went with this.
Yeah.
construed.
What we, and I just thought of this idea, if the province says we can't put it on the bill, there's nothing stopping us from saying, this is how, like, there's nothing stopping us from, communicating with our public that says,
This is what it
if you
costs.
wanna know why you have a franchise fee, this is what it's for, and this is what
I
it's
think that
paid
would
for.
be an excellent idea so that we can, it's transparent too.
It's not on your bill, or it's not on your tax bill, because, if the province doesn't allow us to do that, but that doesn't stop us from communicating, here's what we're doing. right?
Well, that's why I'd like to see that debenture that we're using it for the Pembina Place. Once that one is off, I'd like to see this franchise fee become just the police one.
Yep.
And so we may at one point be able to actually lower it slightly, but it should just be police,
Yeah.
and then you can be that explicit about it.
I think those two are starting to do this.
Yeah.
But I can, sorry, but yeah, when we talked about this, when Mr. Smith was mayor, it was like, adventure wasn't even mentioned. It was policing. And then somehow between here and there, the venture got thrown into it.
With the debentures, because that was part of the strategy long-term, just to ensure that we had reserves to offset for these new debentures we're taking out. So as a debenture falls, real casual, as a debenture falls off, we take the amount that fell off and we put it back to the reserve
Yeah.
to offset the new debentures, so we normalize it. But it's a strategy that we can look into as well, because I think it's good to assess whether that's still working for us, like, year over year. So it'll be something that we can talk about in depth during the council retreat too. Just like at the very least to make sure you guys have like a full understanding too of the strategy, as it's a pretty big component of the budget.
And as you said, as they fall off, that franchise fee can come down.
Yeah, and we could look at doing that, still taking that debenture out, but maybe funding it in a bit different way, and it may be in taxation at first, but just something, it's just a conversation we can have.
Just before we leave this page,
Yeah.
so are we saying that if we approve these three increases, it's $92 a year per residence?
Yes. There's my 1% of taxation. I knew it was somewhere. Red. So, with the increase in the water variable rate, that gives us an increased revenue of $35,756, or 1% of taxation. So, based on the average household consumption between 12 to 15 cubic meters, the increase would be $4.20 to $5.25 per month per household. So, with the gas increase from $2.15. $2.35, sorry, the 3 is missing, to $2.35. The increased revenue is $36,851, so just over 1%. Based on the average household, we calculated 8.9 gigajoules, so that's about $1.79 per month per household increase. First franchise fee, increased revenue of $36,000, again, 1% of taxation. So with these increases, it's increasing the household $92.83 per year, but it's decreasing the percentage in taxation by 3% overall. So it's a pretty significant number.
So I think the last note, and it's something to remember when we start going through the operations budget, specifically in utilities. We set these rates not from a policy or it's strictly a financial component where we said we want to continue making sure that we're not increasing that reliance on taxation on utilities. That doesn't mean that we can't bring these down, but our ask from administration and the caution here is, if you cut something out of the budget that's not in utilities to bring that utility rate down, you're actually increasing your subsidization from taxation onto your utilities. So when the utilities budgets come up, if we want these rates to come down, that's kind of the bucket of money that we gotta look at. For changes in the budget to bring that cost down. Because otherwise, we're back into that spiral where we're using more taxation to subsidize our utilities. That's the significance of those three numbers there. It's 3%, that if you put your rates down, your taxation's going up by 3% to cover your
offsets.
increase.
That utility costs are not changing.
And so say, the water variable rate is something you don't wanna increase, okay, so let's look at the water budget. Where are we gonna cut $35,756 to offset that? How are we gonna come up with that? Gas, what are we cutting from, the gas operating costs? We can't impact the policing costs, cause that's what we've tied it here to.
These areas are the ones that are, when we talk about the consumer price index, the utilities guys aren't going out and buying groceries and clothes and all this stuff. They're buying pumps, they're buying pipe, they're buying meters. And that 1.7, unfortunately for us, and unfortunately for our residents, that 1.7 doesn't equate. And that's the bridge that we gotta find, right? And we've gotta find that balance. So like I said, the numbers that we put here were not anything more than showing the financial reality of what it is and what it's gonna take to make that balance. And to make sure that we don't, or that we continue on the path to reduce our reliance of utilities from taxation subsidization. This is a long journey. It's not gonna happen overnight. Quite frankly, it's probably not gonna happen in anybody's term here. This is something that has to continue over a long period of time to get us there. And it won't be a straight line down. It'll be, you know what, we do this and, we might have to back off at times and it'll, right? For us to think that this is gonna be a straight line, I think we're fooling ourselves. The question is, this is council's decision, what's the right way to, what's the right manner to go with this for the benefit of our community? It is short-term pain, long-term gain, whichever way you move the deck of cards.
This is probably a really good stopping point.
Councillor Olson, do you have any questions through to administration on what we've had so far?
No. Oh, you're going around. I'm like, why are you picking on me? I was awake the whole time.
Right-handed. Councillor Cosby, anything you would like to ask or questions on the material presented? Councillor
I
Spicer?
asked my questions, so I'm good.
No, I'm good.
Councillor Smith? Councillor Brown? Councillor Butcher?
Well, I'd like to say it was a very good presentation, and it's always a learning experience. And I know the great job that you're doing on this.
Thank you, Councillor Butcher. Team effort.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to make sure everybody had a round table chance. Sorry.
Question, are you okay with it?
Actually, I was quite impressed with what we got, and it gives us a different look that we have to be able to get our head around. So answered all the questions during the presentation, so. Oh,
No, I have a question here. Back off, Lee. You're not adjourning yet.
go ahead,
Just so
Councillor.
I'm clear in my head, we're not meeting now until next Thursday, right?
We have a council meeting on
Council meeting, we still have a regular council meeting on
We have our committee of the whole.
Yeah, but on budget.
budget, no.
Okay, no budget deliberation until next Thursday. But I'll be zooming in for the other two.
26th, right?
I don't know.
Wednesday.
27th is a Wednesday, right?
No, so this is Thursday, because I have a board meeting that day, so I know. 24th is Monday.
Community Service Board
26th is
Wednesday. They're looking at it thinking, do I have to be to that one?
Yeah, and you get to meet all the ladies on community services hall.
Just,
Dave?
1 second.
Hey, quit jumping ahead.
20, the 25th is actually an anniversary for the opening of the Cultural Center in 2006. So that's 19 years ago for the Cultural Center. Yes?
I'd just like to make comment. You know, I've appreciated watching this and listening to it, but I sure as hell hope that we're not gonna settle on 7%. We've gotta do better than that,
We gotta do better.
substantially better.
Well, we might
That's-
have to cut some services.
That's what budget review is all about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Counselor Smith, I can tell you that we took great pains to get it down as much as we could without what we believe it will affect some service levels, and those are the decisions that council has to make, and whatever council's decisions are, we will carry those out, and we will make those changes, and we will do it as council wishes, and you won't hurt our feelings by making those changes. We fully expect them, and we will have a list of some things that will hopefully make it easier for you to come to grips with a number that's substantially lower than the 7.41.
Yep.
Yeah.
7% wasn't the starting.
Down to 7.34. Because of the 1.7 increase for council.
Yes.
Exactly. See, we're already chipping away. Yes, one of our last meetings too, based on the conversations we've had here and information, we will compile a list of potential cuts for you guys to debate and the associated percentage increase, and we can do it in real time too. So that's something we did last year, where we would see where we wanted to sit. We came in at a budget, an initial proposed budget around the same percentage this year as well. But when Mr. Van Buel and I were debating this week ago, trying to make some final cuts before the presentation, I think we were sitting at
We're over 10. We're over 10.
yeah, it was, so a lot of difficult decisions were made, and without shedding too much light on what's to follow, a big impact here was interest and falling off of taxation, interest revenue from the taxation arrears. If you'll recall, during the year, we had that significant arrears payment paid, and so the consequence of that was we're not gonna see that revenue as well, so it was a $80,000 hit. Combined with interest, so.
What you're saying is you cut Garnett's budget by 5% without him even being here.
No, he gave me a ton of information, like, there was some low-hanging fruit.
I think the best way to explain this is, we've made the cuts that we believe are administrative in nature. The next cuts will affect our service level or our maintenance levels, and again, for us to stay on our swim lane administratively, those are the decisions that council has to make. And I don't envy you. Don't get me wrong. I don't envy you. But as I said before, it won't hurt our feelings when you know with the discussions, and we will carry out council's wishes to the very best of our ability.
And Councillor Smith, just to add to your comments there, Ms. Tingley just said some very important words. What we found last year, I think, was the first time we actually had it, is when council said, what if we did this? She's able to transpose the numbers immediately in front of us in real time. So we actually see the impact of what our comments have, which was a big step forward for me last year. Councillor Butcher?
Well, I'd like to say that we heard over AB Muni's, this is going to be a tough year. The next 4 to 10 years are going to be a tough time for our province and for our municipalities. So we've got to keep our nose to the grind and make sure that our community is sustainable. We're going to have to make hard, tough decisions.
Councillor Cosby, your hand was up.
Motion to adjourn, Your Worship.
All in favor? And thank you, council, for